Welcome, Aries, to a new cosmic chapter. Saturn returns to your zodiac sign on the 14th of February. You had that brief visit of just over 3 months last year, but he's going to be with you for the next 2 years through to April 2028. I'm going to share the event chart with you. You can see that on screen because we can talk about Saturn being in Aries in isolation, but of course it's very close to Neptune. The two meet exactly on the 20th of February, but it's also in a very important relationship with Pluto, the planet of change. But we need to look beyond that. What are the other planetary players telling us? Because they're going to provide a backdrop, those relationships for those next 2 years. I'm also going to give you an insight of the opportunities that Saturn is going to bring for you. We often talk about Saturn in a very kind of fearful way. What are the opportunities? There can be challenges, it's undoubted. I'm going to explain the archetype of Saturn to you and also what we experienced last year in the conjunction with Neptune, why I feel it is going to be different going forwards. Now, at the end of this video, you get a chance to download free, totally free, a worksheet which is going to give you so much intel in order to deal with this situation. And also, please check out your February monthly forecast. But before we get to that, I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you're a returning visitor, your views, comments, and likes are truly appreciated. If you're new here, thank you for your company. If you've yet to subscribe, please help the channel to continue to thrive. We're near to 134k subs. And also, I've been getting quite a few hypes recently. And if that's open to you, I'd really appreciate that too. So let's just think a little bit about Saturn and the archetypes. So over the last couple of years for you, Saturn, apart from that 3 month period last year, has been occupying a very psychological part of your chart. And Saturn in Pisces is not a happy bedfellow. Saturn likes boundaries. Pisces resist them. But also, it's the 12th house for you, but for us all collectively. So it's possible that you had to face quite a lot of things from your past, or perhaps undercurrents, or maybe uncomfortable situations that you may have been reluctant to grapple with before. And therefore, over the last 2 years, there may have been some separations, some losses, low vitality, even not really feeling that life was that enjoyable. There may have been a sense of overwhelm. So, what can you expect with Saturn in your own sign? Well, your sign is ruled by Mars, and Mars is a furnace in Aries. It's about passion, and it's a tremendous planet. You initiate, Saturn resists. The two don't go very well together. Saturn's in its full in your sign. In technical astrology, that means it's challenged there because you are about freshness and newness. Saturn's really about more outcomes and consequences. So there's a mismatch. How does that work? Is it going to feel like you're going to drive for the next 2 years with the celestial handbrake on? Well, possibly. It depends how you choose to work with Saturn. We can fear Saturn. It can be really challenging. But if we know how to work with it, it definitely gives us those aforementioned opportunities. But let's just quickly whiz back to last year, the 25th of May through to the 1st of September. But on the 30th of March, Neptune arrived in your sign for 6 months. So the two were pretty close together. Neptune is obviously the modern ruler of a water sign. So in the fire sign, maybe in some ways, its emotion is extinguished, or the passion that you normally bring to situations. Maybe, maybe not. But then we did have a heat wave, particularly in the UK, Neptune in Aries, and Neptune's very atmospheric, so very much about weather. But Saturn in Aries, for that first visit, brought with it an avalanche, it seemed to me, of very authoritative, cold, intolerant attitudes. Now, some things may have been a little bit due, because one of the downsides of perhaps Piscean energy and Neptune being there full time since 212, apart from the 6 months last year, is that Maybe there has been a lack of boundaries. Maybe there's been too much empathy, an empathy overload. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't still be mindful of people's rights, compassion, but most of all, truth. And Neptune has a great gift for distorting reality. So, one of the things that we did see last year was the hard, cold fist of Saturn, but also the dissolution and the erosion and perhaps confusion of this new way of doing things that seems to be emerging at pace. But now we're all beginning to get the hang of it. So, what we can get with your sign, which can, of course, be about passion, it's a fire sign, and because the duo are going to be linking to Pluto, and in the case of the position of Saturn and Pluto. So they come into a beautiful sextile exactly on March the 28th. So we've got the evolution of Pluto, but the structural energies of Saturn. But you, for sure, it is a new beginning because Saturn takes 29 and a half years to go through the heavens. And it is the planet which rules time. It is about discipline. It can be about wisdom. It can be about limitations. So in the first house, that can be the body. So one of the things that is true for all of us, not just Aries people, we need to take our well-being, our physical well-being more seriously. And that does mean, therefore, being more careful about what we eat and drink, but also the amount of exercise we get. And one of the things with Neptune in the 12th house in Pisces may have been bloating, a lot of water retention. So it's a chance to burn that off. But I think, particularly with the Epstein situation, there has been a lot of information that hasn't been disclosed, and it has been to protect the powerful. We've seen the victims' names come into the public domain, their addresses and their photographs. It's outrageous. And we've still got a kind of pushback on opening up. Why? And I don't feel that, particularly with Neptune aligning with Pluto, I don't feel that that is going to be sustainable. It's not going to go away for these wealthy, powerful people. But we do need to be conscious, as I mentioned before, of the overall chart. So in the case of the sun and the moon, so the two luminaries, the moon is in the very visible part of your chart, the 10th house. So your emotions are going to be close to the surface over the next couple of years. But also, there could be a bubbliness with you because the moon's in an opposition with Jupiter. So one of the things you'll want to achieve by the time Saturn moves into Taurus in April 28, you're going to want to improve your living conditions. You're going to be want to be protective about your family life, and that's really good. But if we look at the gathering of energy still in the sign of Pisces, it suggests that when it comes to relationships, the more psychological dimension or the need for sincerity is going to continue. So, as much as some people may have massively disappointed you over the last couple of years, you're moving into a new reality. You're going to be firm about what you will or won't accept. But sincerity is important, and also an ability to relate in a compassionate way. That's important for you. But where I feel that we're all going to collectively feel the energy of this event chart is the sun in the square with Uranus. So I think for us all, collectively around finances, we're going to continue to see turbulence, unfortunately. We have seen recently cryptocurrency start to dive. We know that oil prices are going down. It suits some people's agendas. Obviously, we all like to get our fuel for less, but it wouldn't necessarily suit Russia, for example, which gets most of its income from fuel. But then, of course, we've had things like gold and silver, which have peaked, equities, but they're starting to slip back. But a huge amount of governmental debt, particularly in America and France, and to a degree in Britain too. And the cost of Ukraine is also something that's causing quite a lot of strain for the European countries now that America is not directly funding things in the way they were. So I feel we are going to see a continued uncertainty about how we earn money, the value of us, very Uranus in Taurus, and the new technologies that are coming in are going to continue to occur. So for you, the energy in Aquarius is about your future, and you need to grapple with that future with the knowledge in mind that staying exactly as you are now is just not an option. It's not an option for any of us. We have to evolve. So I think that's the big picture for you, Aries. But this year, we do have some particular energy which I feel is relevant to you. So the first one I saw is the retrograde begins on the 26th of July, but at just under 15 degrees. So if you've got any Aries planets from 0 degrees to about 16 or 17, or indeed any cardinal planets, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or Aries, you're going to feel this year particularly keenly. Now, Saturn reverses back in its retrograde, which ends on December the 10th, by 7 degrees. So anyone from 0 to 16, 17 initially, but maybe towards the back end of the year, it's those 7, 8 degrees. And for sure, in the angularity, Saturn asks questions. So when it's in a conjunction, as it is, in fact, with your Sun, which occurs on March the 25th, you may feel that certain parts of your situation that have been ongoing could be challenged. There may be things that you need to question whether it's the right thing to continue. But also, it can help you to blend creativity with realism. So that's good. But you do have on March the 8th a conjunction between Venus and Saturn. If there's a weak relationship around you, it's going to come up then for sure. Now, what you do with it is down to you. But on April the 19th, we have Saturn in a conjunction with your ruler Mars. Now, that can, just before the Sun moves into the sign of Taurus, that can see something that you felt frustrated about, very hard to contain. And remember, with the moon at the top of your chart as you go into this new period, this new cosmic chapter, the chances are your feelings will be closer to the surface. But then we have two squares when the sun's in Cancer on July the 6th, and then at the end of the year when the sun is in Capricorn. And those are quite awkward for you. We also have a square on September the 1st between Mars and Saturn. Again, things that maybe are a bit awkward will need to be challenged. So you're a leader, you're a cardinal sign, you are being thrown down the cosmic gauntlet to get a handle on where you're heading. You can see it can be about the future, but it needs to be with sincere relationships. But the chances are the more you can simplify your life and focus on what's really important for you, the individual, the more your energy won't go down too much in a physical sense. But where we can take knowledge, Saturn can be about wisdom, is talking to people about our diet, our activities, what we're doing for a living, and trying to find ways to prize open opportunities. And that comes from hard work, application. It doesn't come from having massive expectations. It comes from being very realistic. But Neptune being in your sign together with Saturn does suggest if you do want to change your image in some ways, then that's a very good combination. Also, Saturn and Neptune, when they're together in conjunctions, can be very creative. So if you are someone who's got a talent that hasn't really been manifested quite as well as it could have done, look to shine it up on February the 20th and as this year goes on. But essentially, Saturn really whizzes forwards this year in a way it just didn't last year. It never got beyond 2 degrees last year, but it was in that transformational link to Pluto. We're all connected, Aries, every single one of us. Please check out your monthly forecast for February, and I can help you with that to really get into the detail of what this month is about, particularly Saturn moving back into your sign, but also the solar eclipse, which occurs on the 17th, and then a very powerful right angle between Mars and Uranus in the last week of February, which is tasty beyond, really is very tasty indeed. Now, also, I mentioned before that you can download my cosmic guide. That's totally free. Please see the link below and look out for my very special offer too. Now, one of the intriguing things about the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune on the 20th of February at 0 degrees is that 0 degrees is the vernal point. So the start of the zodiac. It's where on the spring equinox, the whole journey begins again. So having the combination between Saturn and Neptune there is particularly intriguing to me because there's a form of astrology called Draconic astrology, where the North Node is moved from wherever it is in the natal chart to 0 degrees Aries. And that can change a chart quite a bit. But the person I want to give you a little bit of an insight to of how this works is Madonna. So on the screen is Madonna's nativity, and she was a Leo. So obviously, a person who's a performer has to have a degree of glow and radiance and magnetism, and having the sun, but also Uranus in the sign of Leo, along with Venus. Venus, I think, is the love of theatrics. Uranus is the confidence to be different. I think the sun being in the third decan of the sign of Leo, subruled by Mars, is the passion, but also a bit more edge. You can also see when it comes to the edge that Uranus and Mars are in a square. So that gives this person an appreciation of being provocative. Mars is the most prominent planet in the whole chart. So it is going to be very important. It's about pushing boundaries. However, if we dive a little deeper, that cluster of energy in her 12th house points towards someone who could think about things very deeply. Obviously, with the Virgo ascendant and the moon on it, someone who has a great appreciation of their immediate environment. But I feel that's the side of Madonna that has a real interest in psychology, healing, and anything to do with mythology and things like the Kabbalah. And in terms of her success, I feel that's driven a lot by the Sun and Jupiter being in a wonderful sextile, so potentially very fortunate. But if we look at that North Node, which I mentioned before, for her it's on a fixed star called Spica, Spica, and people with planets on Spica tend to be very prominent, can be hugely successful, and build up a big following. So the combination between the North Node and Jupiter suggests her life karma, her direction of travel, the North Node, has been about finding balance, interest in the arts, but definitely an ability to make money. So that's her natal chart. But let's look at Madonna's Draconic chart. So remember, the North Node is at 2402 in her natal. We go to a Draconic, and there is the North Node at 0 degrees Aries on the exact degree that this Saturn Neptune conjunction is happening. And that's why I wanted to tell you about it. Now, when I did share Madonna's chart a few years ago and said that she was a Leo, I had loads of people write to me and say, no, she's not, she's an Aquarius. But clearly, she is a Leo because she's born on the 16th of August. But in the Draconic version of her chart, her sun is on the anaretic degree of Capricorn. So this is a person with a real instinct for business, but also perhaps with the flavor of progressiveness that comes from Aquarius energy, which is the combination still of Pluto and Mercury, very analytical, but uh, the combination of the ascendant and the moon in Aquarius is very much more to do with being groundbreaking than the Virgo in her natal chart, which can be someone who wants to provide services, is very detail orientated, very organized. She may be all of those things, but in this chart, the more radical part of her nature really is that much more visible. She still has the need to perhaps be more meditative, quiet, take time out of the limelight with the 12th house energy. And also, Saturn in the fourth house means that, you know, home and family is important to her. And I think it's right that she's adopted some children. So that shows a great responsibility and a great empathy to look after those who are less fortunate. But that combination of the planets stay in the same relationship, so we have the same aspect. We still have Uranus in a square with Mars, but Mars here is also very close to Spica in a nature chart. So as Mars, Draconic conjunct the North Node and Jupiter in her natal. And the ninth house is about expansion, it's about risk, independence. Uh, it is true that Mars is technically detrimented, but in this illustration, you can see that the moon and Mars still very strong, so she's a great communicator. So, what the principles of Draconic astrology are is that they're the root of who we are. So, when we come into this world, Draconic's the root of our personality, and the natal is the fruit that comes from the tree of life that we go through. So, if we really work at it, we can see the outcome of our life physical journey much more like the natal chart. But some people find the Draconic chart represents their personalities much more. For example, my Draconic midpoint, sun and moon, is Cancer, and I am very much a home lover. And people who are close to me, been close to me for a very long time, I value those relationships very much. So, if you'd like to understand the difference between your natal chart and your Draconic chart, just like I've shared for Madonna, you can order your Draconic 12-month forecast and get your character analysis, your Draconic Life Roadmap report. And if you apply Draco 26 at the checkout, you'll get 50% off. But also, if you would like to order your natal 12-month forecast and natal life roadmap report, if you apply Astro 26 at the checkout, you can get 50% off for those too.